for Marsabit County, Senator Mohamed Said Chute. And then there is a question directed to the Cabinet Secretary, Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, Dr. Alfred Mutua. This one speaks to the arrest of Kenyan pastoralists from Turkana County in Uganda and what the government is doing to ensure that conflict over pasture between the two neighboring countries is resolved. And then there is yet another query directed to the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development that speaks to land registration in Samburu County. It is a live broadcast brought to you by the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation in conjunction with the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit. And as you can see on your screen, the Cabinet Secretary, Investment, Trade and Industry, Moses Kuria, is already in the chambers. He is on standby, awaiting directions. And should he be allowed to proceed, he is expected to be responding to queries surrounding the mandate of the Kenya National Trading Corporation, KNTC, and extending to importation by corporations and individuals.
So we proceed with the order that is before us. Senator Chute, you may proceed.
Thank you again, Honorable Speaker. I was on C. Well, my document was tampered with by my friend here. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was on C when I was interrupted. The C reads, could the Cabinet Secretary disclose the financial state of KNTC and also indicate how much has been paid to the respective suppliers and how much is outstanding? Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, members. And I want to take this early opportunity to first apologize to this august House because I got this summons slightly over 2 months ago. But, Mr. Speaker, the nature of my work is that I've been doing some quite of traveling, not for leisure, not for tourism, but with the aim of assisting our country to open new market frontiers for our goods and services, and also to work with partner countries to attract foreign investment, which is very much required to get our country and our economy moving again. Mr. Speaker, I want to also take the opportunity to thank you and members of the Senate Business Committee and also members of the Senate in general for extending your invitation to me to appraise members on the role of the Kenya National Trading Corporation in addressing the high consumer prices for essential commodities. This, Mr. Speaker, is part of your mandate in considering all matters related to trade and indeed all matters related to our public affairs.
I've seen your written response filed. Now, I just proceed to answer the question as captured on page 2, use the introduction as your reference notes, but go straight away to question 15, as you have done very well in your response, and then use that introduction as a part of your reference notes, so that we save on time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the question of the type and quantity of goods being imported by the corporation and individuals pre-qualified by the Kenya National Trading Corporation, KNTC, I would like to respond as follows. KNTC is currently dealing with the importation of 4 products, namely fertilizers, rice, beans, and cooking oil or edible oil. The corporation has pre-qualified the following suppliers for the supply of various commodities as stipulated before. Number 1 is Lamal Commodities Trading Corporation, DDMC, Standard Petroleum, Makram Imports and Exports, Pulma Holdings, Multi Commodities FZC, Shehena Commodity, Chalma Holdings, Evertech General Trading, Enterprise Supplies Limited, Loan Trading FCE, and Fast Quality Suppliers Limited. The public procurement in the meaning construed under Section 2 of the Public Procurement and Disposal Act of 2022. KNTC's procurement is organized in 2 sets. For internal use and consumption, the transaction will be subject to the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Law. Transactions for trading items are progressed outside the public procurement and asset disposal framework with proper financing and accounting procedures put in place. And this, Mr. Speaker, is recognizing that KNTC is a commercial organization that survives on trading, getting the best offers and suppliers from the market. So the procedure runs as follows. 1, in accordance with the timelines indicated by the clients, the manager of the sales division raises and signs appropriate purchase requisitions to initiate the procurement process. B, the manager sales division, with the support of the supply chain division, shall at the same time prepare specifications for the items to be procured. The experts in the department then they develop specifications or establishment of an internal team to prepare the specifications. C, the purchase requisition and the specific specifications are forwarded to the head of finance for commitment of funds. D, upon commitment of funds by finance, the procurement requisition and specifications, including any other relevant information, is then submitted to the managing director for approval. E, the purchase requisitions is then submitted to the supply chain division to commence the procurement process. F, quotations or bids are then received, opened, evaluated, and an opinion prepared in line with profit margin analysis recommendation for the accounting officer's approval. G, a purchase officer order or a contract agreement is then executed and issued expeditiously. Then the manager of the supply chain division liaises with suppliers and on the delivery schedules for the supplies, of ensuring smooth working of the ad hoc inspection and acceptance team. Only trading items that meet the corporation's requirement are accepted and taken on charge. Then all invoices for the procurement, inspection and acceptance certificates and of payments are officially received at the supply chain department for purpose of payment. And then we have got an annexer there, which Honorable Speaker can be referred to for more details. Turning to question C, on how many companies were awarded business, those currently importing goods, the type and packaging of the commodities being imported during financial year 2021-2022 and financial year 2022-2023. KNTC engaged 11 suppliers for the various commodities in financial year 2022-2023 as tabulated in Annex 15B. KNTC was not dealing with importation of commodities in the year 2021-2022. Mr. Speaker, on the financial state of KNTC, how much has been paid to the respective suppliers and how much is outstanding. The corporation relies on internally generated revenue to finance its operations. As a corporation that relies on internally generated funds from selling of goods or at minimal profit, we are constantly trying to balance between maintaining low prices for our customers while generating enough income to cover our administrative costs. The financial status of KNTC reflects this delicate balance as we strive to keep our prices affordable without compromising the quality of our products or the financial sustainability of the corporation. Mr. Speaker, the financial performance for KNTC over the past years is contained in that table, and you shall see that in terms of net income, 2022-2023 is at 67 million. The previous year was 96 million. That is 2021-2022, and in terms of recurrent revenue, as we speak, we are at 359 million Kenya shillings, down from 405 million in the preceding year. Amount paid to respective suppliers and balances outstanding. KNTC has procured imported commodities valued at Kenya shillings 22.2 billion as of 30th of April 2023. Commodities worth Kenya shillings 4.8 billion has been delivered. No payments have been made to date to the suppliers since the letters of credit are yet to mature. It must be remembered, Mr. Speaker, that business of the kind of type business you're talking here does not happen by direct cash payment or transfers. It happens by LCs. So it is only as and when the LC matures that the payments become due. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, giving the corporation time to be able to sell the products in the market, and that's why they use this instrument to be able to extend that time. But be as it may, as we speak, the value of goods delivered so far is Kenya shillings 4.8 billion. And Mr. Speaker, I will refer you to Annex 15C2 for the detailed breakdown of procured imported commodities and the status for supplier payments. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Sears. C7A, the senator asking the main question, the primary question, has the opportunity to ask 2 other supplementary questions. Now, Senator Chute, you may elect to ask them at once, or you may elect to ask one, and thereafter allow your colleagues to ask supplementary questions, and then you come in the last.
Thank you once again, Honorable Speaker. I will ask one question first, and the other one after my colleagues have asked. My question, Mr. Speaker, to the CS is, there is a list of pre-qualified suppliers for the supply of goods, Annex 15A. If you look at 22 pre-qualified entities, there is a supplier by the name First Quality Supplies Limited, who supplied 25 metric tons of fertilizer not listed in the 22 pre-qualified suppliers. How did he end up giving contract of 22 metric tons, 25,000 metric tons to this supplier without pre-qualification? Thank you.
Honorable Sears.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to defer that question until the next round of questions so that I can be able to make some consultation.
You can consult with your team, and thereafter you will proceed to respond.
Absolutely.
Just consult.
Much obliged.
Senator Kinyua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've been reading and watching on news the issue of importation of edible oil, which has been equated almost to a scandal. Can kindly the minister elaborate to this House the interest of the importers on this issue, and Mr. Speaker, the connection to the same to the media of this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Sears.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Senator, for that question. Mr. Speaker, over the last 6 months or so, this country has allowed, through a Gazette notice, importation of 1.4 million metric tons of maize to address the issue of maize shortage and the skyrocketing price of unga, which was as high as 250 by the September last year. Mr. Speaker, this country has also allowed importation of 1.2 million tons of rice, despite the fact that we have got rice in Moya, in Kirinyaga County, we have got rice in Ahero, in Kisumu County, but it was necessary because of the drought situation, the famine, the food shortage that was there, to make that move and also to manage the cost of living. Mr. Speaker, at the same time, we got approval from Cabinet to import 125,000 metric tons of edible oil. Mr. Speaker, you'll notice that of all those 3 products, the one with the least amount that was allowed to be imported was edible oil. 1.4 million maize, 1.2 million rice, only 100,000 metric tons of edible oil. Yet, the attention out there is not about rice, and farmers from Moya and Ahero would be justified to rise and say, why are you importing rice? And we have got rice we farm rice. But, Mr. Speaker, the farmers of Moya and Ahero, they don't have a voice. They don't have the deep pockets. They don't have the money. They don't have the kind of checkbooks as would be required to create the kind of noise that has been heard in the media. Only this item, 125,000, out of which, Mr. Speaker, the amount of edible oil that has landed in this country is only 3,000 metric tons. That is close to 170,000 jerrycans of 20 liters that are used in our homes. So only 170,000 families is what have benefited from what has been imported by KNTC. Mr. Speaker, when we started this importation, there were even cartoons in the media. There were a lot of jokes and memes going around in social media about the price of edible oil. It was said to be among the most expensive things to buy. By that time, Mr. Speaker, 1 liter of edible oil around November, first week of December, when I addressed the Kenya Association of Manufacturers about this issue, it was 400 shillings per kilo. And that time, Mr. Speaker, on my first day of work, speaking at KICC, after being sworn in, I told the edible oil industry that this is not acceptable and this is not sustainable. And I asked them to do whatever it takes to ensure that we have a level playing field, and also to ensure that the price of edible oil comes down. Mr. Speaker, I instructed KNTC to import edible oil with a target that 1 kilo of edible oil would retail at 250 shillings. Mr. Speaker, because of only 170,000 jerrycans, the price of edible oil today has dropped to 218 shillings per liter, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is despite the dollar, which by the time I gave that instruction, the dollar was going for 125 shillings. Today, the dollar is hovering in the region of 140. Yet, Mr. Speaker, the price of edible oil has dropped to 218 shillings, to the relief of so many Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, what is the problem with the edible oil industry? The problem with the edible oil industry is that 55 million Kenyans depend on 5 companies. If 5 companies collude and they decide to poison, all of us are going to be in very deep trouble. These 5 companies, Mr. Speaker, are Bidco, and I'll talk about Bidco later. There's a company known as Kappa, a company known as Pwani Oil, a company known as Menengai, and a company known as Golden Africa. These companies, they engage in what they call their own version of value addition. What?
Senator Chute, you know you cannot raise a point of order against the CS.
Leading the House. We don't have only 5, we have more than 5, Mr. Speaker. Let him do his research well and come back with the...
Senator, Honorable CS, the Senator from Marsabit has just stated that the information you're giving to the Senate is inaccurate, in that you're giving us a list of companies that is not exhaustive. So could you make that clarification as you move?
Mr. Speaker, as a minister in charge of industry, I am the one who licenses manufacturers. And all manufacturers has to get something called SKU from the Kenya Bureau of Standards, which is in my ministry. I will be happy, Mr. Speaker, to get any further information with the specific SKUs from the Honorable Senator Chute, so that I can be guided. But let me say this. What do these companies do? Mr. Speaker, these are companies who are said to be engaging in the business of manufacturing or value addition of crude palm oil.
Honorable CS, I listened carefully to the question asked by the Senator for Laikipia. And I don't see the relevance of that response to that question asked by Senator Kinyua. I think for the last 5 minutes you've done very well, going straight to responding to that question. But what you are now proceeding to do, I do not see the relevance to that question that has been asked. So if you're done responding to the question by Senator Kuria, you may yield and allow other senators to pose further questions.
Mr. Speaker, I stand guided. And to the specific question of Senator Kuria, the reason that there is the outcry in the media is that, in my honest opinion, is noise sponsored by these 5 companies which I have stated, which have continued to enjoy monopoly, which are using the profits they have made historically to fight our efforts to bring down the cost of living, and who have got a lot of money because they enjoy this monopoly status. Because if an ordinary person wants to bring in the same product that these companies are doing, any other company is slapped with import duty of 35%, whereas these people pay 0 in terms of duty. So, Mr. Speaker, the direct nexus between the answer that I've given and the question asked by the Senator Kuria is that the media is working for these cartels who want to lock out everybody, want to lock out the no ordinary person, the hustler, who want to keep the prices high as it has been historically, and they will do anything possible to scuttle any need to move.
Honorable CS, you're making very grave allegations. And the rules that apply in this House are that you should be able to substantiate any allegation that you make before this House. One of the allegations you're making is that there are 5 companies that run like a cartel. Secondly, that these companies are sponsoring headlines. Honorable CS, those allegations, if you cannot prove them, kindly drop them. If you can prove them, go ahead and give us factual basis of those allegations.
Mr. Speaker, last Sunday, I was engaging a journalist who wanted clarification about some of the issues that we are discussing here today. Mr. Speaker, the name of that journalist is Gerard Andai from Daily Nation and Business Daily. And I asked him, Mr. Andai, I find it difficult to continue giving you answers because even when we provide the correct information about edible oil, you continue to write negative stories. That gentleman from the Nation, Mr. Speaker, told me, I have received from Ms. Pamela Mutua, the CEO of KNTC, all the answers and the trends of the downward spiral of edible oil prices. But every time I write the correct truth, my editors tell me that all they want is a negative story. Mr. Speaker, that conversation did not happen verbally. That conversation happened over WhatsApp, so I have got evidence to substantiate. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, now, Honorable CS and Honorable Members, statements in the media are inadmissible and they do not speak to the accuracy of any matter that can be discussed in this House. And therefore, as you rise to ask supplementary questions, don't refer to any statement in the press. And I'm going to read to you Standing Order 51B. To be specific, 51B3G. And this is what it says. A question shall not ask any statement in the press or of a private individual or an official body other than an official government report is accurate. So do not question whatever you read in the newspaper, whether it's accurate or not. We do not go by newspaper statements. So be guided as you ask your questions to the CS. That is the provision of our standing order. We cannot discuss statements in the media because the accuracy of those statements cannot be verified. Proceed, Senator Aaron Cheriot.
Mr. Speaker, this is very interesting information we are listening to this morning. I listened very keenly to Senator Chute, especially when he rose on a point of order. Though ideally it's not permitted, but you allowed him, and that was very good because the information he brought has allowed us as a House to know that there are 4, I hear Senator Chute say there are 5, the Minister earlier had stated I think 4 or 5 companies that enjoy preferential treatment, if I'm following through what he's saying. Mr. Speaker, the reason we engage in this kind of exercise is not for a feel-good effect. It's so that we can help the people of Kenya, who we represent in this House, enjoy maximum benefits of a government they put in place and interventions that will make their lives better. I would wish to listen and hear from the CS, Mr. Speaker. What was the consideration for closing this market to only 5, or is it 4? I've had 5 and 4 interchangeably, so I want to be sure first. The minister said the records they have at the ministry, because they certified through KEBS, is that there are 4 companies. I want to know, is it 4, is it 5, is it 6? I want that matter settled. And what procedure was used to arrive at these 4 companies? And are there any practices or any government policy intervention that will allow a more even playing field for other? Because, Mr. Speaker, I know there are other SMEs that play in this industry. Unfortunately, if when they try to import, they are subject to an import duty of 35%, then it means in perpetuity, these 4 or 5 companies, Mr. Speaker, will forever enjoy an added advantage over other smaller players. So what policy intervention is the minister proposing to this House, Mr. Speaker, so as to open up this industry to competition and allow other players so that Kenyans can enjoy better prices on audible oil, Mr. Speaker? I'd wish to get that clarification from the minister. The number of companies and what is it that is being done to make a level playing field for other interested companies, especially SMEs, that will wish to participate in this industry so that the price can be lowered. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the number of companies, it is actually 5 companies, Mr. Speaker. And for avoidance of doubt, I'll continue to repeat which these companies are. Bidco, which also goes by the name of DAS Africa. And this company has been renamed by DAS Africa as a result of some change of shareholding that happened in the final days of the last regime, and this is information that is public out there, registered in Mauritius. So that is that. And we have got Menengai, we have got Kappa, we have got Pwani, and we have got Golden Africa. So there are 5 companies. Mr. Speaker, why they enjoy the preferential treatment is because previously the definition of value addition, which they purport to do, was supposed to be importing crude oil from mostly Malaysia, from one company called Wilma in Malaysia. So one company supplies all of them with so-called crude oil. But, Mr. Speaker, a big element of what they do is actually importing refined product, do some very minimal value addition, create very, very few jobs, and then that becomes a ticket to lock out all the SMEs out there. So I want to agree with the Senator Cheriot that there are so many SMEs who would also want to play in that space, but they are not. It is not happening. Mr. Speaker, the definition of value addition to this government is not the same as in the previous government in terms of edible oil. Mr. Speaker, this government believes that effective value addition must be based on what we are calling the value chain approach within our bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Mr. Speaker, today, the county of Busia, the county of Migori, the county of Homabay, the county of Kwale, the county of Taita Taveta, the county of Kilifi, these areas, the county of Lamu in a very big way, these counties, Mr. Speaker, sir, are they have very high potential for growing of palm oil, for growing of sunflower, for growing of soya, which we could have done that many years ago to avoid continuing to import edible oil from out there. Mr. Speaker, Kenya is importing $1 billion worth of crude palm oil every year from out there. This money is going to Indonesia. This money is going to Malaysia. This is money, dollars that are leaving our country and hurting our economy in a way where our people are still poor and they are still jobless and our people have no incomes. Mr. Speaker, one of the companies, Bidco, in Uganda, in some place called Sete Island, they have gone further ahead and done what I am describing as through a value chain approach. So there are plantations in that island on 30,000 acres, which is already under palm oil, and Uganda is on its way to self-reliance in terms of edible oil. And there's also Tanzania is also very much ahead of us. Very, very soon they will be also self-sufficient in terms of edible oil and stop importing. But the same Bidco company here, because of this huge incentive, that is zero incentive to involve our farmers and grow and have outgrow like they are doing in Uganda. For here, the margin and the protection is so much that they do not need to do that. As a result, Mr. Speaker, we continue to lag behind our neighbors in terms of these very important items that we use every day in our homes. What have I done, Mr. Speaker? Initially, I said to protect those jobs from those 5 companies, even if I don't agree with that monopoly, but just not to be accused of messing up with people's jobs. Let me allow just one company, Kenya National Trading Corporation, to import duty-free edible oil and see what happens. With only 170,000 jerrycans which have landed, the price has dropped from 400 shillings to 218 shillings for 1 liter of edible oils, just for the fear of the edible oil that we have imported that has not even been packed in the source countries, but just to underscore how this we are at the struggle of these companies which were enjoying maximum protection from their shareholders and partners in the previous government, and they think this government can do the same. This government, Mr. Speaker, sir, campaigned on a platform of the common man, of bottom-up, of a value chain. Today, we are working with partners from the same countries like Indonesia, and the president of Indonesia will be here in August, to start a partnership to grow palm oil in Homabay, in Kisumu, in Migori, in Busia, in Lamu, in Taita Taveta, and have incomes to our people. Mr. Speaker, sir, an average farmer, and I was discussing this with my good friend Gladys Wanga, the governor of Homabay, a typical farmer in Sese Island in Uganda has got a monthly income of 142,000 shillings. And Governor of Homabay, Gladys Wanga, has informed me that the highest paid person, the one with the highest income in Homabay County is a teacher with 40,000 shillings. Yet an ordinary farmer who has not gone to school in Uganda gets an equivalent 3 times to that school teacher in Homabay. That is what we want to see, to create jobs, to put income to the people, and that is why this matter we are doing is a matter of very much high concern for this country, for our future, and for our food security. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wafula Wakoli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to put this to my good friend. Have you, as CS, ever sat with manufacturers and players in the sugar, maize, and edible oils industry to discuss how to address the high prices of commodities? When and how many minutes? Thank you. Can I proceed with another question, Mr. Speaker?
No, you may not. Under our standing orders, you're only allowed one supplementary question, which you've already posed. Honorable CS, proceed to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Senator of Bungoma for that question. Mr. Speaker, even after I was nominated to be the Cabinet Secretary for Investment, Trade and Industry, even before I was approved on an informal basis, after my confirmation, the first people that I've met were manufacturers of this product, of edible oils, the millers, and all these sectors. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, I have sat with all the 13 sectors under the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. And I have said publicly, Mr. Speaker, this has been out there in the public domain, that I will take action. I will take action, do something, let's work together. This step that we had to take to import edible oil was, we did it at zero option because our continued efforts to talk. I have met Kenya Association of Manufacturers teams and sector leaders not less than 13 times. The President of Kenya has officiated over not less than 4 events of these manufacturers at my invitation. So, Mr. Speaker, I have done everything that I need to do. And let me add here also, today, and sorry because I skipped this in the question from Senator Alon Cheriot, further than allowing KNTC to import these 125,000 metric tons, I have also taken another step in consultation with the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, where for 1 year we are suspending import duty for all oils, either processed or crude oils, for 1 year, and hope that within that 1 year we are going to have a better conversation with the people in this sector to see how can we grow palm oil, how can we grow sunflower, so that we can be self-sufficient in our food. So, Mr. Speaker, I have taken all efforts to talk, and unfortunately, because there's no incentive for them to change with their full stomachs, there's no incentive to change. So, therefore, I had to do what I had to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Okenyuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. And I'm actually very upset that the minority side would walk out if genuinely these were some of the issues they were raising in the bipartisan talks, because now we have the CS here to highlight what this government is doing to cushion Kenyans from the high cost of living. So, Mr. Speaker, allow me to go direct to the question. I want to direct this to the CS. The CS, would you give a status of all the Kenya National Trading Corporation branches on their functionalities, if at all they are functional and existing as it used to be? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS, and be short. And
Honorable Speaker, I want to first thank Senator Okenyuri for that question, and as I make some consultation on the same, let me revisit first the question from Senator Chute on, he had asked earlier, and I begged your leave to consult on one company which is appearing as having supplied fertilizer but was not in the list of approved importers. Other than importing fertilizer, we have got some companies which have made a lot of efforts to manufacture fertilizer locally. So it could not be approved for imports because that company is a local company which is doing manufacturing locally. Mr. Speaker, in terms of branches, we have got, of course, the head office in Nairobi and 6 other depots in Nakuru, Eldoret, Kitale, Kisumu, Machakos, and Meru. All of them are functional, Mr. Speaker, and we are now in the process of refurbishing them, which we hope to do in the coming financial year, that all of them will be brought into world status. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, now Kenya has become a dumping ground as far as commodities are concerned. And of concern to me is a product like rice, where Kenya is actually producing some rice and other commodities. Mr. Speaker, one time I walked into a market and I was actually sold onions from Ethiopia. My question is, do we have a mechanisms in place where we sit and actually agree, or rather check, that we really need to import a certain product in this country? Because if we don't do that, Mr. Speaker, we are going to hurt the manufacturers and we are going to kill morale of the manufacturers. I thank you.
Honorable CS.
Mr. Speaker, our national production of rice, as I thank Senator Patumadolo, is 180,000 metric tons. That's how much we produce. Our national consumption is 1 million metric tons. So we are barely producing 15% of our national consumption or national demand. This is an issue of concern. And that's exactly the main reason why the government has prioritized on the issue of productivity. That is why today we've just clocked 3 million bags of fertilizers under our subsidy program, so that we can be able to bridge this gap between production and consumption. It is a dire issue that on one hand, our people have nothing to eat, our people are jobless, yet we continue to export our dollars to import close to 800,000 metric tons of rice every year, which can be grown locally. Mr. Speaker, we are also resolving this issue through focus on large-scale mechanized agriculture. You are going to see a lot of news coming from Galana Kuralu, where our first 10,000 acres of irrigated land under maize is on trial basis, is doing very well. We are continuing to receive, because of the effort that myself and the government are making in terms of promoting foreign investors. A lot of investors want to come and partake, assist us with the capital, because farming is good, but farming is also expensive. And so therefore we need an injection of capital to be able to do large-scale mechanized agriculture, and we are getting a lot of people coming, and actually we hope that within the next 1 or 2 years we are going to bend the curve in terms of reliance on these imports, so that we can also be self-sufficient. I expect, Mr. Speaker, that as we continue to harvest the benefits from Diba Dam in the Moya irrigation scheme, that the productivity will also go up. So better yields, more inputs like fertilizer, more water for irrigation, and in fact putting more land under agriculture. All these are the efforts the government is making to ensure that we bridge the gap between supply, which is extremely low, and demand. Mr. Speaker, this is remarkably a major departure from the previous government, which was subsidizing consumption. This government has said we are going to subsidize production, so that we do it only for a certain period of time, and after that, the country can be self-sufficient. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Veronica.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity, and the CS, welcome to Senate. Just to seek for more light from your end, Honorable CS, on whether the procurement that was done on the edible oil was done competitively or it was single-sourced. If it was single-sourced, why would then that be allowed at the ministry? What level of competitiveness, open and transparent system did you deploy to ensure that Kenyans receive the best price that is possible for the edible oils? And have you moved your offices to Two Rivers, or they are still at the ministry?
Honorable CS.
Honorable Speaker and Honorable Member, I want to thank Senator Veronica Maina for that question. There is no distinction or exception in the way we treat edible oil in terms of procurement framework from other commodities. In fact, I would have expected the question to be, did we single source for rice? And did we single source for maize, which we are importing, or did we single source for other products? One, there's no distinction, there's no difference. We do not single source. We procure suppliers, we pre-qualify suppliers from time to time continuously under the framework agreed with the public procurement authority. And why we do that is, one, because we do not receive any funding from the exchequer. Suppose we go out there and we do a public tender, and the lowest bidder is above market. We are going to be obligated to do that. And that's why we presented our case to the PPRA, and we told the authority, please look at it from this way. We are not the only trader. In fact, we should not be trading. Kenyans should not be trading in normal circumstances. You should not be importing. This is not our job.
Honorable CS, the question was, as far as edible oil is concerned, did you do single sourcing, or was there competitive bidding? It's a question that you can respond in just a sentence.
Mr. Speaker, short answer is we do not single source. All our pre-qualified suppliers are given an equal opportunity to present quotes, and then we take the most competitive quotes because we have to make profit. Mr. Speaker, just to apologize for my lengthy explanation, and why it is emotive for me is because I really also want us to look at the Moya farmer who should be complaining equally like the edible oil person, but the Moya farmer is weak, he has got torn trousers and open shoes, so they have no voice, they are not on the table. So I have no problem answering for edible oil, but really I want to also to somebody to ask on behalf of the rice farmer of Ahero and Moya, not just edible oil of the few cartels. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chiranke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is a supplementary question on the functionality of KNTC. CS Kuria, last year in November, we wanted to know, under KNTC, how many metric tons of maize has been imported into the country, and what is the projection of consumption, and whether the moratorium of maize is still extended up to harvesting period, because also we are speaking for the torn trousers of a farmer from Nandi, from Wazingishu, from Trans Nzoia. And CS always be finding time to appear before Parliament. We want this conversation to extend so that when you come, we don't need to ask a lot of questions if you can make yourself available. So on behalf of the maize farmers, and finally, Speaker, because it's one question, whether in the same manner, through the KNTC, the issue of importation of fertilizers, and whether how many metric tons of fertilizers was imported into the country through the subsidy program to improve on food security, because we are tired of importing all and everything into the country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honorable CS.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, and thank you, Senator Obnandi, for that question. And that is a conversation I can have every day about the torn farmer, from the guy with the torn shirt and trouser from Mosoriot. It is also close to my heart that we focus on that farmer, because that is what this government is all about. Mr. Speaker, short answer is that we did not, as KNTC, import any maize, and we have not imported any maize. What we've done is that we gave approval for duty-free from the Ministry of Agriculture to import 1.4 million bags of maize to bridge the need that was there, and that has worked somehow to keep us going until the harvest. If we did not do that, Mr. Speaker, by now it could have been a total catastrophe, because we also had a delayed rain, especially within the North Rift. We are monitoring the situation. As a matter of fact, the problem with maize is that there's just no maize. There is no maize in our region. There is no maize in our neighborhood. Even traditional areas where we get maize like Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina, there's a shortage of maize generally. And that is why also we took that step to import high quantities of rice, hoping that somehow we can be able to moderate our consumption behavior from maize to rice. And Mr. Speaker, I must say that it is not easy, and we hope to achieve it one time, but our loyalty and our fidelity to maize continues, and that should make the Senator of Nandi a happy person. Mr. Speaker, I am glad now you are here where I am, because Senator of Nandi was not very happy with me in November when I talked about importing maize. And I hope that now Ms. Senator of Nandi will confess that I have been vindicated by what has happened over the last 7 months. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, we have expended 1 hour on this particular question. We have 2 more CSs on the queue. They came here at exactly 9. They're waiting on the queue. And therefore, I will allow the Senator from Marsabit to ask his second supplementary, which will wind up this session with the CS.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this question has a lot of interest, and I am requesting, if possible, Mr. Speaker, let me ask my question first. The last question is to the Cabinet Secretary. There is a company called Palmer Holdings Limited, which was allocated with 30,000 metric tons of rice, 12,500 metric tons of oil, beans, 20,000 metric tons. The owners of this company are Mary Wambui Mingai, and another company under the same ownership called Enterprise Supplies Limited, and again, ownership of Mary Wambui Mungai and Mary C. Moniki, are given allocation of 6,250 metric tons. My question is, there are many Kenyans who can supply these commodities. Why only allocate many and huge supplies to this particular person and particular company? And Mr. Speaker, I said earlier, the CS is misleading this House. We have got 13 suppliers, manufacturers of oil. If you give me...
What is your point of order, Senator Chirange?
I raise pursuant to Standing Order number 98, and the second order is escaping my attention. Senator Chude, while I appreciate the very heavy question he's asking, he has mentioned the name Mary C. Wangui. As per the standing orders, you don't discuss somebody who cannot defend themselves. And CR12, I agree, might have done a good research, look at the CR12 of the Attorney Generals, but mentioning a name, Mr. Speaker, who cannot appear here to defend herself by the name Mary C. Wambui as being only, does not, I wish you would have just maintained the corporate name, and then we can move from there. But discussing, Mr. Speaker, where you have made a ruling before in the chair, discussing the person of somebody, even of Moses Kuria as a person, is not allowed by the standing orders. Is it in order to bring the name of Mary C. Wambui? And I've seen media was writing about Mary C. Wambui over the weekend on Sunday Nation. Could the senator be reading a lot of newspaper, and you have read that any stories that is linked to the newspapers, the veracity of that accuracy of that information, as per the contents of asking the question, should not be pushed. So, Mr. Speaker, would the senator kindly withdraw the mentioning of name Mary C. Wambui and substitute with the corporate name of those companies so that we can proceed? I thank you, Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence.
If I go to the senator's question correctly, I think he proceeded to state the company and the directorship and pose the question, why should large quantities of supplies be given to only these companies? And I think it's legitimate.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Again, I would want to remind the CS Trade, and it is very unfair for him to come and give misleading answers here. If you will allow me, Mr. Speaker, Pwani Oil Company, formed in 1981, Kappa Oil Refineries, 1968, Bidco Oil, Bidco Africa, 1986, Menengai Oil Refineries, 1992, Golden Africa, 2015, Edible Oil Limited, 2010, Vipingo Industries, 2022, Duffords Industries, 2009, Gill Oil, 1996, United Millers, 1977, Salwa Kenya Limited, 2018, Vita Oils Limited, 2019.
Point of order, Senator Veronica.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very concerned that my colleague, Senator Chute, begins his sentence by saying that the minister has brought misleading information, while in actual fact there is no evidence to that effect. I think if he wants to address his issues, he can pose the questions. I think that's the opportunity granted to him, and leave the minister to answer, unless he has evidence to show that what is being provided by the minister is misleading. I haven't seen any evidence yet presented to you, Mr. Speaker, or to your desk, to show that the minister has been answering to mislead the House. So I don't know why he's taking that direction.
Senator Chute, you have one supplementary question to ask. Refrain from making speeches. Go straight to pose the question to this.
Mr. Speaker, you see, I represent Kenyans here. And when a CS comes before us and gives us a misleading answer, and I'm saying it again, because I even cautioned him earlier, I said, we don't have only 5. Now we have 30. Sorry, because this is his docket. And
what is your question? Are you asking, what exactly are you asking?
Mr. Speaker, I have asked a question, and then also I wanted to correct the CS when he said we have only 5 manufacturing companies in Kenya, and I've given the names of those manufacturing. Then it is up to him to say they are not 5, they are 13, or he maintains they are 5. Then we are going to have inquiry on this issue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS.
Honorable Speaker, let me first address the issue of the company that has been mentioned. We advertise publicly for suppliers. It is a public process. It's not a private process. It's not hidden. We have no control absolutely over who applies. We do not ask them to give the details of the owners. We look for the best deal and best price that can enable us to carry out our statutory mandate of managing the cost of living, while also managing the financial strength of the institution. So I am not aware of the names of the shareholders, but I take notice of what Senator Chute has said. So in all fairness, I need to verify if these people have got any criminal record, because that would be the only thing to disqualify them, but that process is very open. On the question of the companies, I have got 2 short answers. One, I do not have the benefit, because Senator Chute in his first question did not have the names of the companies. So I don't have the privilege of having access to the person who has sent those names to him right now subsequently. If I had, I would have prepared accordingly. So therefore, I'm happy to receive it as a written question that will need to be researched so that we can consult, because I do not have all my licensing. I do not have KEBS here. I do not have the people who would, give me the kind of information rapidly like the one who have maybe sent by SMS or WhatsApp to Senator Chute. And finally, assuming I'm wrong, assuming it is 13 companies, not 5, still 13 companies doing business at the exclusion of all other Kenyans is unfair, uncompetitive, it will be illegal, and it is unethical. I submit.
Honorable Senators, we will terminate at that juncture. Honorable Senator Mandago, you know you cannot raise a point of order again as the CS. That's basic rules in our rules and procedure. Honorable CS, thank you so much for coming to shed light on the matters that have been asked by the honorable senators. We will leave it at that. Just to tell you that whenever Senate writes to you requesting you to come for purposes of responding to questions, we are doing that not just for purposes of our own consumption here, but it is a result of the pressure being mounted on the senators as representatives of the people wanting to know what government is doing. And therefore, when you fail to appear, basically you're failing the people of this republic